feel like I say this to you every week, but I really like this passage. And part of it is because this is one of those gospel passages when Jesus is forming the way that the 12 look at life. So what you see here is they're just in the temple, they're just in the area, and all of a sudden he sees out of the corner of his eye this little old lady. I mean, you can picture it, right? In modern days, she's going over there, she puts in her little coins, and just in your heart, you're like, oh, look at her. Jesus notices that. And he's like, hey, guys, come here. Look at that. Here's what my heart thinks about that. What he's saying is, here's what I find important. Here's what moves my heart. Here's what God finds value in. And Jesus is doing this all the time. I mean, think about when he sees birds outside. We're just like, well, isn't that nice? But Jesus is like, hey guys, come here. You see that bird? Everything it needs is taken care of for it. It doesn't need to look for grass. It knows when to leave and go down south. All of its food is provided for it. God takes care of that little bird. Why do you not think he's going to take care of you? Everything Jesus is seeing around him, he's pointing out to them, look at how I see this. And actually, when you spend time around Jesus, he does that in our life. When you look at things day to day in your life, that's what you're doing here this week. That's what I'm doing here this week at Mass. He's forming the way that we look at our lives so that we can begin to see it in a godly way. Now today, this is so beautiful. This little old lady dropping her coins in, and you can just feel Jesus' heart there, like why he's so moved by that. He's so moved. And honestly, I think the 12, you could also see their perspective. They're like, what's the big deal? You're a horrible accountant if this is your thought. 2 cents? We're not going to get very far. But the truth of the matter is, what he's pointing out here is something very profound. Jesus, God, is saying to us, I'm infinitely rich. I don't need your money. God doesn't need our money. God doesn't need your time. God doesn't need your talents. You're like, whoa, what's going on here? No, he's infinitely rich. With the snap of a finger, he could have everything that he wants or needs for us. What's moving God's heart here is not the amount of money that's being given, but actually, it doesn't benefit God. We say that in the prayers. Our praises add nothing to your greatness. But who does it benefit? Me, you, that poor widow, that lady. When she gives that money to God, that actually benefits her. The reason that Jesus' heart is like so moved by that is because this woman is now able to have her whole livelihood touched by God. When I was a kid, I was probably 8, we had to build shelves in my house. And so my dad was tasked with this responsibility. And so, you get up in the morning, Saturday, you go to Home Depot, you get the stuff, you start building. Well, he let me help him. And I can tell you, I was not much of a help. I think that project could have been done before noon. We were working on it well past 9 p.m. Why is that? Well, I was drilling the wrong stuff. I hit my thumb with a hammer. All of these different things went wrong. But why did Dad let me do that? It wasn't help to him, but he let me do it because it was good for me to spend time with my dad, but also to learn. He let me take part in what he was doing. It benefited me that he let me help. And so same thing, when we give our money, our time, our talent, our treasure, our 2 coins, whatever that may be in your life, to God, it actually benefits me to give it to him. Because he's infinitely rich. Now, a story I have that highlights this comes from one of my priest, I don't want to say celebrity, but I really look up to him. You have role models? He's an old priest. Hopefully he's not watching this because I just called him old. But Monsignor Rolfs, he is just a beautiful person. But when he was a young priest, just newly ordained, he's fresh off the marble. You can still smell the oil on his hands. He got a call from a nearby hospital to go down and anoint this old lady. And so, he's excited. You grab your oils, you grab your stole, you're like, yes, we're going to anoint someone. And he goes to the hospital room, and it's this old woman named Blanche. And so he anoints Blanche, and then as he's about to leave, feeling pretty good about himself, Blanche stops him. She's like, Father, I have a question for you. He's like, yeah, what is it? And she's like, why did God give me cancer? And Monsignor's like, okay, didn't cover that one in seminary. He's like, just kind of nods. He's like, yeah, that's a great question. And she's like, okay, I know you're new at this, so I'll ask the big guy, you ask the big guy, and if either of us hear anything from God, we'll let the other one know. How does that sound? She's like, okay. So he left, and he goes back to the rectory, and the pastor's like, how was the anointing? He's like, are they all like that? They're not all like that, by the way. Well, lo and behold, 2-3 days later, there's a call around midnight from the same hospital. And so Monsignor rushes down to the hospital. It's Blanche. And, a number of different things happen to you day to day. So this isn't like, he doesn't really remember this conversation on the forefront of his mind. But he goes in the room at midnight, he's groggy. And Blanche, he thought, she's going to be on the verge of death here. She's sitting in her chair, rocking, thinking. This old lady. And he's like, Blanche, what's going on? And she's like, he told me. He's like, what are you talking about? He told me. I asked God why he gave me cancer, and he told me. And so Monsignor pulls up a chair, he leans forward, he's like, well, please do tell. What did he say to you? And it was so beautiful. She said, Father, before this cancer diagnosis, I was doing so many things, and a lot of them very good things. Every year, I won the gold at the state fair for my tomatoes. I would play cards with my ladies, and man, we'd clean house. And you know what? I did a lot of charity work for the poor. And now here I am in this room, dying of cancer. My garden's grown over. My card friends don't even know what to say to me. And I can't be doing charity work like this. But she's like, so I asked God, and this is what he told me. You had all of these things in your hand. Tomatoes, charity work. You couldn't hug me with your hands full. Your arms were full. I was always important to you. I was one of the many things in your arms. But what God said is you couldn't hug me with your arms full. So God permitted this cancer. And now my arms are wide open, and I'm ready, she said with a smile. And Father Rolf's, jaw on the table, he's like, he still tells the stories to this day. And it's so profound. Why? Not because cancer's easy. No. Not because losing a loved one is easy or losing things that you love in your life. No, that is not at all what we're saying. But what I am saying is, like that widow, this lady, the widow gave the 2 coins willingly, sometimes unwillingly. These things are taken from us, given to God. But even out of the worst things, God can bring good. And I would also add that widow. She gave the 2 coins willingly. Notice that word widow. She lost her husband. If you've ever lost an immediate family member, that's hard. It's unwilling. It's difficult. But what this woman is pointing out here is God is infinitely rich. He doesn't need our things, but it benefits us to let God have our arms be open so that we can hug him. This is what's going on here. And so today, God is infinitely rich. He doesn't need our money or our efforts. Rather, we need to take part in his efforts. We need to be like the little kid helping dad. We need to learn to love like they love up there, and part of that is taking part. He lets us do that. That's such a privilege. We get to partake in his work and become more godlike. And secondly, like Blanche, whether by choice or by force, when we give our wealth to God, When we see it from the God's eye view, when those things are knocked out of your arms, it's so that you can hug him. You can't hug God with your arms full. And so at the end of the day, he wants you more than he wants anything that you can give him because he loves you. And so, apply this to your life. Where can you be generous with God today? And know that that actually benefits you more than it benefits him because he wants to be with you. And rest assured, if you give to him, God is never outdone in generosity.